Hello, YouTube. It's I'm here with Hobbies and Man once again, and today we are talking about Dune, the movie. I went to watch it yesterday, Saturday, with my roommates, and holy shit, man! It was a wonderful movie. Now, I'm trying to keep it spoiler free, but I mean the book is 60 years old. I don't really know that there's anything I can really spoil, but I'll try to stay away from plot, situations. I will talk about the characters and kind of like the world building and stuff like that. So, if you don't want to have any of that spoiled for you, maybe don't watch this video. But yeah, let's get into it. So, Dune, holy shit, man. But let me set the stage a little bit. My dad is a huge Dune fan. I think Dune was the first science fiction novel he ever picked up on his own when he moved from where my grandparents lived to the city. When he went to university, and so it's this very meaningful thing to him, right? And he kind of got me into reading Dune, and I've read them. I think the first 5 books in the series. I really did enjoy most of it, but it wasn't like the greatest thing ever in my mind, because well, by the time I read Dune, I had already seen a shit ton of Star Wars. I had already read stuff like Princess of Mars. And I had already just enjoyed a lot of science fiction. And so the kind of seminal aspects of the Dune novel, in terms of like how it set the stage for the rest of sci-fi moving forward, had already been explored and kind of way better in other books that have come out later. So Dune wasn't like the greatest thing ever to me, but I did appreciate how methodical and kind of mystical and mythological it felt, because Dune is basically like a dude that's space Jesus, right? And he's chilling on this planet with like giant sandworms. And it's very, very interesting, and has a lot of kind of like this epic grand scope, kind of very space opera, even though I think Dune is technically not a space opera. It's more of an epic. And the difference between those two is maybe not that meaningful, but there is a difference nonetheless. And I didn't really know what to expect going into this movie. Like, I had heard a lot of things, right? I had heard that, there's this super awesome director that is attached to the movie. That's cool, but like, most of the time I don't really notice these things. I'm a very casual moviegoer. I don't really pay attention to who's directing what and, stuff like that. And I noticed that there was a shit ton of actors that were super popular. I mean, we have Thanos, Aquaman, what's it called, Oscar Isaac, who's a badass. I love him as an actor. I really think he's really good. Zendaya. I didn't really know anything about Chalamet, the guy that plays Paul. I didn't really know anything about him. And then there's a bunch of other characters, right? Like the guy that plays Stilgar is, I think, the bad guy in Skyfall, if I remember correctly. Like, this cast is stacked. Like, anyone that is popular and attractive in Hollywood was in this movie, right? But, like, I wasn't really sure what to expect. I wasn't sure what was going to happen. And then the trailer came out, and holy shit, man. The trailer looked so badass, so interesting. And then I went to watch the movie. And, man, I came out of that theater immensely surprised. It was so beautiful, so amazing. Like, I'm not talking about the plot line, right? Because the plot line is more or less exactly the same as the books. And the way that the plot line in the books is very kind of dry and very, like, just told so that you know what's happening. And I think the story of the movie kind of follows that pretty well. I think there's a slightly, some improvements by kind of changing the way that you can kind of listen to the characters talking, because in the original book, the setup of the book is like everyone is thinking and talking at the same time, and you kind of get confused sometimes about who's talking. It's really not that big of a deal if you've read enough books, but like, it is a little bit tough sometimes. And so I thought that the movie kind of focusing more on specific characters was like better, because it kind of simplified that issue a bit. But in terms of like how deep the characters are and stuff like that, it's more or less the same as the book, right? and the plot line is more or less word for word the same as well. But like the acting was amazing. The characters were really brought to life and found to be very interesting because of the actors, right? Duncan Idaho and Gurney Halleck were very, very cool. Oscar Isaac as Leto was badass, bro. Like, I don't know how I was expecting him to play the role, but he was just really, really good. I really bought the whole, like, he is the master of a planet kind of thing. Very, very nice. I liked him a lot. I also really enjoyed the way he kind of had that moment with Paul that we saw in the trailers. I was like, all you need to be is my son. That was top tier. I like that a lot. But yeah, the actors were all really, really good. But really, the most beautiful aspect of the story or of the movie was the visuals. I loved it so much. It just looked so real and so kind of like large and galaxy spanning. It was so badass. I was telling my roommates this, that I really loved how there's this kind of like poetic aspect to the way the movie kind of ended up looking like, because Dune inspired Star Wars, right? But now Star Wars has inspired Dune in terms of how things look, right? There's certain shots that are very, very similar to shots in Star Wars, right? There's those wide kind of setting building takes where it's like the planet and a ship, and you kind of come in from there, right? And then there's the kind of way the planets look, like, Arrakis and Tatooine are basically the same thing. And Caladan looks very similar to maybe Naboo, with like rain in the way that they made it look in Camino. Now, I'm not saying that they kind of borrowed the same effects or anything like that. I just think that it's very interesting that it kind of looks so similar and so like, almost word for word. And then there's these kind of moments also, like when there's this thing that happens when they're kind of passing the torch onto the House of Atreides about, custodianship of Arrakis, that basically was like when the Emperor and Darth Vader get onto the Death Star and they walk down the ramp of their a Lambda ship, and they kind of go in and then they talk to the general guy, and then they kind of assume control of the battle station. Very, very similar. I thought that was really cool. And then there's obviously these like huge, like wide shots of military battalions all set up in square kind of columns going into their battleships. Very similar to the end of Attack of the Clones, I think, when all of the CGI clones were going into the giant Venator class ships. So yeah, visually it looked very, very cool, and the visuals, the CGI of the cities and stuff did not look fake at all. Like usually you can tell, right? Like even stuff like MCU, sometimes you can tell, oh yes, this is definitely fake, but it didn't really have that vibe. I think that they did a really, really good job. I'm guessing that they didn't use CGI. They used like models, like small scale models to make those shots, and then they kind of interlaid them onto the computer and stuff like that, because they look really, really amazing. I love the design of the big city in Arrakis. I can't remember the name of it, but I thought it was really cool. It reminded me of like something kind of Mesopotamian looking, and the way the pyramid was structured also kind of reminded me of like ancient Mesoamerican cities like Teotihuacan and stuff like that, where it's like two big pyramids that kind of are at different places, and then there's this sprawling kind of city between them. I thought that was really, really awesome. I thought it was like beautiful looking, and the mechanical design of the ships and stuff, like holy shit, man, so amazing. Ornithopters looked badass. They looked like very military helicopter kind of looking things, but the dragonfly wings was awesome, dude. I just really liked it. There was one scene that was not that good. I think it was the spaceships that carried the Sardaukar. They had these weird like balloon shapes at the back of it that kind of just popped out that didn't look very good. But other than that, it was cool. I mean, even the carry-alls, or I think that's what they're called, the carry-alls, the ones that took the spice cars, they had those same kind of balloon effects, and they looked fine. It was just the ones with the Sardaukar that looked kind of funky. But they kind of hid it away by making it dark and stuff, so it wasn't too bad. And yeah, man, it just everything looked beautiful. The sandworms, the amount of detail that went into the sandworms was fucking insane, man. Like, they looked amazing, and the way they moved across the sand was awesome because it made it look like it was water, but it was sand. And holy shit, man, it's just everything about it was so amazing. Like, visually, this movie is astounding. It is like the peak of sci-fi movies in terms of how it looks. And I really also love the sound design, the way everything sounded and was kind of given its own vibe was really interesting. I heard that Hans Zimmer had to create fake instruments in order to make this sound, but you know, you could still pick up the real world kind of vibe, right? Like, there was this kind of what's it called? Like this Middle Eastern vibe to some of the music. There was this Scottish like bagpipe thing with the Atreides. And then there was this very interesting kind of like Mongolian throat singing vibe with the Sardaukar. Like, you could still see like real life, you know, situations, right? Or places where they brought the sounds from. But it was mixed into this very interesting, very beautiful like musical score that was like amazing. I really noticed it. Most of the time I don't really notice unless it's like a Star Wars movie, but this time I really noticed it. Some of the music was just so impactful. Like my favorite one, which was super weird, was the bagpipes that they used for the Atreides house. Like, that was just so odd to me because it's like, why are they bagpipes? I'm pretty sure the Atreides in the books were descendants of Roman legionnaires, and the older Atreides guy was like a Spaniard, or like maybe he wasn't a Spaniard, but he had like the thing where he liked fighting bulls. So in my mind, they were always like Latin, and then having like bagpipes out of nowhere was like, whoa, what the fuck? But it sounded so awesome. It was very cool. I can't distinctly remember anything in terms of like music that signified the Harkonnens or the Harkonnens. But it was interesting. I also really liked the music they played with the Bene Gesserit. It was just this kind of like Middle Eastern kind of vibe to it. And of course the throat singing thing with the Sardaukar was so cool. It was so badass. I liked it a lot. But yeah, like, holy fuck, dude, this movie was so interesting. Just very cool. Like, I don't know. It made me appreciate Dune a lot more. I think it's gonna make a lot of people appreciate Dune a lot more, or at least get, you know, them interested enough to check out the books. Because sure, the plotline isn't the strongest thing, and the characters are maybe not the greatest, but there's still enough substance there to, you know, really make it a big thing for a lot of people. So I'm really happy with it. I thought the movie was wonderful. I did feel that it kind of ended abruptly, but that's just because it had to be split into two. Other than that, I thought the pacing was really good. I mean, don't get me wrong, it's slow. It's slow as fuck, right? But a lot of the time when it's slow, it's because it's giving you enough time to absorb the previous scene while it's switching the scenes via, you know, some sort of motion, right? Like, there's a lot of times where they're just on an ornithopter and they're kind of flying through Arrakis, and most of the time it's following a previous scene that established a lot of information, right? I also really liked that the story, the movie itself wasn't really hand-holding. Like, it starts with like an introduction of things that you need to know, but then after that it just picks up. Like, you learn about the shields through just seeing them work. You learn about the Bene Gesserit just by seeing them act. You learn about Arrakis and the people just by it, you know, being in Arrakis. Those kind of like floating belts that change gravity. They didn't even mention them. They just used them. And a lot of things were very interesting. The still suits looked beautiful as well. Very interesting. Like, everything just was wonderful. Whoever worked on this, Denis Villeneuve and all of the people that are in it, really made this a passion project. Like, you can tell that they poured everything into this movie, and I'm just so happy that it turned out so good. Me and one of my roommates, we both read Dune. Both really loved it, and I thought we appreciated it a lot because we already knew the backstory and the context. But one of our other roommates, he didn't read anything Dune related beforehand, and he really was interested in the political aspect of the series and the religious aspect of the series because it has this very widespread, just kind of like insanely large feel to it. So I think that it doesn't really matter if you've read the books, you'll still be able to enjoy Dune. But if you have read the books, you might get a little bit more enjoyment out of it because you'll know a little bit more context, and so you won't really have to kind of struggle with connecting the pieces while you're watching. You'll be able to enjoy the spectacle of it a lot more. But yeah, that's it. That's all I have for you guys today. I don't really think this was a review. It was just me talking about Dune. So yeah, I hope you guys enjoyed this video. If you did, please leave a like, subscribe, and comment down below. Let me know what you thought. And yeah, thank you guys very much for watching. See you guys later.